Game Sack is now on Blu-ray. Hello and welcome to Game Sack. This time we're looking at games that don't really focus a whole lot of attention on violence.
That's right. At first we were trying to come up with games that actually didn't have any violence at all in them, but you know what? Those ended up being
Like Tetris.
Yeah, various sports games or games like Flower, Journey, Flow, which we've already covered.
Very recently.
Yes, very recently. So, of course, we decided there's got to be games, otherwise, maybe that, like Joe said, don't focus on violence.
But they have a little bit of violence, maybe. So,
Yeah.
but they're just, well, let's just shut the hell up and you'll see.
Yeah.
This is Siberia, which is an adventure game from Microids. Different versions came out for a bunch of different platforms, but I'm playing it on the original Xbox here. The game stars Kate Walker, who's a lawyer looking to close the sale of a toy factory that resides in a strange Eastern European town. Doesn't sound like an exciting premise for a game so far, does it? So you arrive at this strange-ass town to seal the deal and head straight to your hotel. But as you get there, you find that the owner of the factory has just died. She didn't have any heirs though, right? So not really a big deal. The factory's just as good as yours. The game plays in a similar fashion to Resident Evil as you maneuver around static screens that switch depending on your position in the room or area. It doesn't use tank controls though. You actually press the direction you want to move. I actually kind of found this weird and tough to get used to. Often I'd be running along and then suddenly the scene would switch to the opposite view and I'd start to turn around. Then I'd have to stop and quickly press the other direction on the D-pad or analog stick depending on what you're moving to get going in the right direction again. If the game had tank controls, I'd only have to worry about holding up to move forward. There's no options for tank controls, at least not in the Xbox version. Yeah, it's a very minor nitpick, but it's worth mentioning. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that it can sometimes be very difficult to find where to exit the screen so you can go to the next screen. Even if you're on a big-ass street, you need to find a specific place to go further, even though nothing is actually blocking you. Most actions in the game are performed with the A button. You'll see an icon when you can interact with something or someone. Sometimes it can be tough to position yourself just right so you can get the interaction underway. Again, this is another nitpick, so don't let that deter you from an otherwise entertaining game. Anyway, you'll quickly discover that there is indeed an heir that nobody knew about. Now your job is to find him. Why? So he can sell you the company, of course. Again, this sounds a lot more boring than it actually is, and the game does become much more interesting as it moves along. There's a bunch of different items that can be picked up, so be sure to grab anything and everything you come across, and be sure to look everywhere. If you get stuck, maybe use your cell phone and call someone. Speaking of the phone, you'll get called from people you know back in the States quite often. They have absolutely no patience at all and will constantly badger you about not getting the job done fast enough.
Yes, that's right, but...
So where's the problem, Kate?
For some reason, even your boyfriend starts whining like a little punk-ass bitch just because you can't meet him for lunch the next day.
I've got to stay a bit longer. Dan, you don't mind, do you?
But Katie, you can't do this to me.
This guy sounds really needy. I want to break up with him.
Dan, I was going to call you.
Yeah.
As you'd expect with games like this, there are lots of minor puzzles to solve and things you need to do in a certain order. It's not tremendously difficult and you have all the time in the world, fortunately. But there are a few times when you probably are going to feel stumped. Like here, where you need to build legs for Oscar the Automaton. I really had no clue which switches to press and which color to select on this board which builds his legs. You can try again and again if you get them wrong, but you need to ask Oscar if the feet you built are good enough first.
These feet are incorrect, Kate Walker.
This can take a lot of time running back and forth all over the place between each try. I love the world that this game takes place in. Everything in town is very steampunkish except without the steam. It's all powered by springs and gears and whatnot. Spring punk? Is that a thing? I don't know. The town almost has a desolate Silent Hill feel to it at times except without the scary things and the danger. There's no enemies here and certainly no boss fights. One of the big selling points for me when I bought this game back in the day was that it could run in 720p and 1080i. I mean, you rarely saw games with resolutions that high back then on consoles. It looks really good even though the majority of the game uses the 4:3 aspect ratio. Most of the screens are static, but there are some here and there that will actually scroll. No parallax, sadly. Still, everything looks incredibly sharp and detailed for such an old game. There's the occasional cutscene which will be in widescreen, but these are at a much lower resolution. They're still really cool though.
Anna! Over there! What do you mean, over there?
There's not a whole lot in the way of the music. What's here is fitting, but the recording quality is kinda low and there's not really a ton of variety. Overall, the game's pace is pretty slow and is definitely not for impatient people at all. Personally, I didn't know that the game would be this engrossing back when I bought it, and I was pleasantly surprised that it turned out to be better than I thought.
There you are, Oscar. Does this mean we can leave now?
I cannot accept this ticket for the moment, Kate Walker. Keep it.
Why don't you want to take my ticket?
I must abide by regulations, Kate Walker. Not all departure conditions have been fulfilled. I must confirm your departure release.
You can be a real stickler for the rules, Oscar, my old fellow.
Back in 2007, the Orange Box was released containing 5 games from Valve, and I bought the PlayStation 3 version, which I'm playing here. I was really excited because this was going to be my first real chance to play Half-Life. What I didn't realize at the time is that there was another game on this disc that would get most of my attention, and that game is Portal. I've got to admit that the first time I played Portal, I was a bit confused. I mean, I understand the general idea that anything that travels through one end of a portal will emerge from the other end. That was easy to grasp. What was hard for me was that I kept forgetting that I could make portals almost anywhere. I kept trying to solve puzzles the old-fashioned way by trying to figure out a long path when I could have easily just shot a portal. Like here, for example. This is at the very end of the game, and I was still trying to make something more difficult than it needed to be. I kept trying to put this thing on the incinerator, pushing the button and trying to walk over to drop it inside. After a few attempts, I smacked my head and said, "Stupid ass, make 2 portals!" And that made it easy. You definitely have to use some brain cells that you normally never use. The in-game story is great. I really enjoyed how everything plays out here. You play Chell, who's a test subject for Aperture Labs. You get a glimpse of her right at the beginning of the game when you leave your sleep chamber. This was always cool to see, and I wasn't bothered one bit that I was a female character. And as a test subject, you're put through a series of test chambers to see if you can figure out each of the puzzles. As you play the game, you'll hear the voice of GLaDOS before, during, and at the end of each test chamber.
Please note that we have added a consequence for failure. Any contact with the chamber floor will result in an unsatisfactory mark on your official testing record, followed by death.
Basically, this serves as a story mode, and I've got to say that it's highly entertaining.
Maybe you should marry that thing since you love it so much.
The first few test chambers that you conquer, you aren't able to shoot portals as you have no portal gun. Portals are already on walls, and all you have to do is walk through them. It's a nice introduction to the play mechanics. As you progress along, you'll gain one gun which shoots one color portal, and then a few levels later you'll gain the second gun. This allows you to shoot portals whenever and almost wherever you want to. The puzzles start off fairly easy, but by the time you get past the 14th stage, it really makes you think. That one took over half an hour before I completed the level. There were many times when I thought I was completely stymied, but by some persistence and trial and error, I was able to figure out how to progress. The game does feature a quick save, and I highly recommend using it as there will be a few times when you die. The story also took a nice turn on the 16th test level. All along you are told by GLaDOS that if you pass everything you'll get cake and grief counseling. As you make your way through this stage you'll come across a wall that's blocked open by a cube. You can sneak back here and see that somebody's been here before you. They've also been promised cake and apparently found out that there is no cake. This area is definitely cool to come across and it really added to the experience. This won't be the last time that you find areas like this either. As far as music goes, there really isn't much as it's mostly ambient sounds. There is one song that is really cool. After you beat the game, GLaDOS sings a song as the credits are displayed. The lyrics are great and I laughed many times while it was playing. As a bonus for beating the game, you get access to a few rearranged levels, and this is as good as cake for me. The cool thing about this game is that in the end there's really not much violence going on. There's a few spots where you can die if you aren't watching out, but you aren't killing anybody here. It's basically just you solving puzzles and this is great. And don't worry, we haven't forgotten about Portal 2, we just chose to save it for a future episode.
As part of a previously mentioned required test protocol, we can no longer lie to you. When the testing is over, you will be missed.
Hey, come on over, have some fun with Crazy Taxi on the Dreamcast from Sega.
At first, this might look like a racing game, and I guess in a sense it kind of is, but at the same time, it's definitely not. Basically, you play as one of... Well, okay, I'm not going to do that for the whole review. Basically, you play as one of 4 cabbies picking up people who are all willing to pay several $100s for you to take them places within walking distance. You start the game looking for fares in a city resembling San Francisco. These are people with a colored icon over them surrounded by colored lines. Stop in front of them and they get in and they tell you where they need to go. And they need to be there right now. Follow the arrow and soon you'll see the destination surrounded by a giant colored array of lines. Drop them off and they pay you based on your performance. Of course, getting them there quick earns you more. You can also increase your fare by doing things that give the passenger their jollies like big jumps and other stunts. If you want to get people to their destination super fast, you really got to learn the city. I'm obviously pretty rusty here, but it usually doesn't take too long to relearn. Despite being able to find any destination in the city in under a minute, sometimes you're just not fast enough for the passenger. If the timer by their head runs out, they'll just bail even if you're 15 feet from their destination. They ain't waiting one more second for your slow ass. You can try to run over people standing around, but they always miraculously dash out of the way just in time. There's also moves like dashes and power slides to help you out, but I had a hard time doing these since it's been so damn long since I played. I really need to not go so long without playing this because it's a good game. You can play by arcade rules, which keeps adding more time the more successful you are, or play for a set amount of time and go for the high score. There's also an original mode which features a newer and much larger city to play in. It's funny that a lot of the destinations are sponsored places like KFC, the original Levi's store, or Tower Records. It feels so tacked on and weird. There's also the Crazy Box, which has interesting challenges for you to do, like a crazy jump. You can press start for advice if you really need it. And you might. You even get to pop balloons and even knock over all the bowling pins, which is almost impossible. The challenges can be pretty tough, so wimps need not apply. The graphics are pretty good, though certainly nothing spectacular, even for their time. You have the sweet, sultry voice of a Wolfman Jack impersonator accompanying you for the entire game.
Don't blame it on the lane. Come on, get with it. It's not that hard.
Amazingly, he doesn't get too annoying. There's 4 whole songs licensed from Bad Religion and The Offspring for you to listen to that play at random. They're not too horrible and you do get used to them, but damn, I sure would like a lot more variety. This is a really fun game in short spurts, and it was also released on other platforms like the GameCube, PS2, and others.
You're taking me to the original Levi's shop.
That was followed up nearly 2 years later with Crazy Taxi 2. This one was exclusive to the Dreamcast, and there's even a version for the PSP. This one takes place in a fake New York City. It also has the crazy jump. The passengers really like this, and it's really fun to do. It adds to the final amount of the money I get, so I find myself doing it all the time. Once again, you have 2 different areas to race around in, but they seem very similar. And that's the problem with this game. It's just not as interesting as Part 1's city was. The graphics are pretty much the same, only more bland simply due to the location like I mentioned. And once again, there's a similar licensed soundtrack. This one has the Crazy Pyramid, which is the same thing as the Crazy Box from the previous game. And then there's Crazy Taxi 3 on the original Xbox here. It's also on the PC. This time you're in a Vegas-like town with 4 new cabbies to choose from. This is much more interesting than the previous game, though it's still not quite as open as the original. Thanks to the effects they insisted on putting in, the lights look all smeary as you move around. Not sure if I really like that. The cool thing is that you have a San Francisco map from the original game, but now you play with Crazy Taxi 2 rules. You have the hop and you can even pick up groups of passengers at once. Then there's the map based on New York from the second game, though now it's at night. And yes, you have the challenges to do as well. Overall, this is probably the best version to have since it has the most content, but I really don't think it's worth having all 3 titles. So pick one that looks good to you and make some crazy money.
All right, there we go. 3 games that are pretty low on the violence meter. These games are more adult-oriented games per se, that are non-violent. But
yeah, I can't imagine too many kids putting up with Siberia.
No, they would get bored of it anyways. But we've had comments in the past asking about games that are probably really good for kids. Now, in the second half here, we've got 2 games that are really good for kids.
And let me guess, you're going to be covering them probably on kiddie systems, at least one of them.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and they're both great for kids.
Anyway, let's just take a look and see what you've got.
This is Roco for the PSP. It's a platformer, and it might just be one of the strangest games you ever play. I was late to the PSP party, and I actually didn't buy a system until the PSP 2000. When I finally did get it, Roco was one of the first games that I was eager to play. Why exactly I wanted this game I don't remember, because when I look at the back of the box it doesn't look like a game that I'd really want to play. I've got to say that I'm very happy that I gave it a shot because it's one of my favorite games for the handheld. As far as the story goes, there's a planet far away where the Roco live. They do what they have to keep the planet happy, but one day the Mojo Core comes to cause havoc and all other sorts of debauchery. Debauchery, I love that word. Don't you love that word? The planet isn't going to have any of this and uses the Roco to rid himself of this pest. In the game you take control of the actual planet and not the Roco. You use the shoulder buttons to tilt the planet left and right, which of course will cause the Roco to roll. If you hold in both buttons and release him, it will make those little guys jump. As you progress through the levels, there will be many things to collect. There's tons of little berries to collect for points to use later in mini-games. You can also find these mois hidden in each level that will give you house parts that you can use outside of the main game. The big red berries will give you extra Rocos in each level. You can collect up to 20 of these, and each one that you collect will make the Roco grow in size. The cool thing about this is that you can push the circle button and the Roco will split apart and become small. This is necessary in a lot of levels to make it through skinny areas. And once you're through the tight spot, just hold in the circle button and they'll all go back together in one large blob again. There's 40 levels split over 5 worlds and they're all really fun to play. You'll come across the same themes in each world, from an ice level where the planet is slippery to a spring-like level where everything is green and pretty. Then of course there's my favorite level in each world, which is the scary level. I really like these levels with the great use of color to the imagery of dead trees bouncing around in the background and this bony hand with claw fingers. Also, you'll find that a lot of levels have automated type areas where you just kind of have to sit back and watch and see what happens to the Roco. Then there's these levels where you travel through the inside of an animal. Have you ever seen the inside of a frog? Well, here's what they look like down to the last detail. It's completely accurate. The game is loaded with sugar-coated sweetness, and that includes the music. The thing is that I really like the melodies of all the songs in here, but I'm not a fan of the Alvin and the Chipmunks style singing. The problem is that it fits the game perfectly, and it's hard to imagine a different soundtrack. So what do you think of the lyrics in this song? Are they singing fap, 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 or is that just what my ears are hearing? Fap, 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 fap. Along with this main game, there's a few other things that you can do. There's the Loco House, where you can build an area for your Roco to play in with all the stuff that you collect in the main game. I've got to say that I'm really not a fan of this kind of thing. If you like it, great, but it's just not for me. Then there's a few mini games that you can play to earn more pieces to the Loco House for you to build with. There's a crane game, which is about as fun as virtual crane games can get. There's also the Chupa Chupa game, where you have to avoid hitting the spiked blocks. Needless to say, I didn't play these much since I hate the Loco House. So as you can see, this is definitely a game with very little violence and an overload of cuteness. Maybe it's just me, but I really do have fun with this title, and if you have a working PSP, try it out and don't judge the game by the box art.
This is Littlebigplanet on the PlayStation 3. This was a really cool game back when it came out. In fact, it was the only game that Shigeru Miyamoto has said that he wishes he had made. And that is a pretty high honor, wouldn't you say? You play as Sackboy, which is appropriate since this is GameSack, I guess. You run around a bunch of different levels, all of which look like crazy dioramas. Along the way, you collect blue score bubbles. You have a few different abilities, like being able to grab onto things with the R1 button. You'll be doing a lot of this, and it can be pretty fun, especially when you're using it to swing somewhere. There are lots of chances to die, but there are many checkpoints in each stage to respawn at. And there are a ton of different stages. I like the variety, but I don't like the giant mess that they make you sift through in order to choose your stage. Although this game is at heart a side-scrolling platformer, you do have 3 different layers that you need to be aware of: back, middle, and front. You'll need to go back and forth constantly, and I never really cared for this very much. It can sometimes be difficult to get on the layer that you need to be on thanks to the odd camera angle or an object in your way. Still, aside from this, the game is really fun to play and it offers a good challenge, but certainly not anything overwhelming. The control seems to have a bit of a lag to it, but fortunately the game seems to know this and it never requires super quick responses. The graphics are absolutely amazing. A combination of a low frame rate, motion blur, and depth of field give it a really unique look and, I hate to use this word, a cinematic feel to it. Of course, we can't discount the influences of lighting and physics contributing to that feel. There's really nothing outside of the Littlebigplanet universe that have matched these visuals even to date. The closest another game has come so far is Yoshi's Woolly World on the Wii U. It's definitely brighter and a lot more colorful, but it just doesn't seem like it could really exist like Littlebigplanet does. The music here is really good as well, though most of the music is licensed. In fact, this song here is the only part where violence may come into play. I'm sure the lyrics are not what I think they are, at least I hope not. Yeah, that's a song that's gonna cause some nightmares. One thing that's cool is Stephen Fry did the voiceover narration for the game, and he's always great to listen to.
It's nothing to get upset about. Don't go hurling your controller at the cat, because it might throw something back and it'll only escalate and then, oh.
A big part of the game is the level creation mode. I made 2 levels myself, Red's Score Attack and Red's Maze. I actually made these so long ago that I forget how to play them. This maze is insane. I actually remembered it just enough to finish it, but not in record time. Give it a try if you have the game and the servers actually still work, and let me know what you think. This is a fun game that was really a breath of fresh air when it was released. Littlebigplanet 2 came out a few years later, also on the PS3 of course. This one was pretty much more of the same, only with a few new abilities, lots more variety when building levels and all of that. The single player game was also incredibly easy, and I remember beating it in like no time at all. This is actually the first time I've played it since then. Of course, I had to download and install 30 updates totaling several gigabytes just to play it. I didn't know the game was that broken.
Have you heard about the brand-slapping new More Stories section in your pod computer?
Okay, so it actually added a bunch of more content that I honestly don't really care about. But hey, maybe you do. I can't complain about more content. Still, it was worth it to go through so I can show you all a bit of this game. Once again, there's a lot of variety here and a few new playstyles as well. It's a good game, it really is, but I just wasn't feeling it anymore and I kind of gave up on the Littlebigplanet universe. I personally feel that the first one is a better game, especially since it was so new at the time. But even when capturing footage for this episode, I felt bored playing part 2. Sony is still going strong with this franchise, but I think the first game was enough for me.
Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a refreshing change for Nintendo on the Wii U. I'm not saying that I'm sick of Nintendo's other offerings, and I like the vast majority of the 80 or so Mario titles that have been released on the market. A new IP from the big end that strays from the usual stuff that they always put out these days is almost always welcome. Treasure Tracker doesn't disappoint, and with a $39 price tag, you definitely get a lot of substance for the price. The game plays as a single-screen puzzle game. The only thing that I really don't like about this game is that you have to use the Wii U tablet pad thingy to play. It's definitely not a comfortable controller, and I would much rather use a Wii U Pro controller. I really like this style of game where you have the whole puzzle laid out in front of you. You can rotate the board as you please, and this is great so you can see everything that's going on, and you can also see hidden items and try and figure out the best way to get a hold of them. You can also zoom into your character for a closer look if you need to. This is great if you're heading down a little hallway or behind a wall and you can't really see when the view is zoomed out. Each level has a number of things to collect, from diamonds to the big star. The star is the only thing that you must collect, but of course you won't totally complete each board without getting all 3 diamonds and meeting another requirement. This other requirement can be just about anything from collecting a golden mushroom to getting a certain number of coins or not defeating certain enemies. If you do manage to get the 3 diamonds, meet the certain requirement, and get that star, you get a stamp on that page of the book. Yay, that's awesome! Actually, it's nothing special, but for people that must collect everything, it can be quite challenging. which is what Nintendo ultimately wants. They want the game to be easy enough for any noob to be able to pick up and play, and have enough difficulty in collecting everything to make it challenging for pro gamers like Joe and me, and maybe you too. So Toad controls really well, but he has one problem. He can't jump. Apparently the backpack that he's carrying around is so heavy that his underdeveloped legs are only strong enough to walk and kind of run. Yes, you can get Toad to hurry up a little bit by holding down the R button, and it does help in certain situations. He also wears a headlamp that you can turn on and off. At first I didn't understand the point of this, but when you have the headlamp on, you can reveal hidden objects like coins. There's no time limit on any of the maps, so you can take your time and try and explore every little nook and cranny on each board if you want to. Like I said, there's lots of hidden stuff, and you'll need to look really close to find some of it. The levels are all included into books. There's 3 books total, and each one has over 20 levels. As you'd expect, the first book isn't difficult, and really just helps you get used to the controls and how the game works. Once you get past the first book, you get to play as, or should I say forced to play as, Toadette. It's not a big deal since she controls just like Toad. By the time you get to the third book, it gets much tougher. There actually is quite a bit of challenge here, and that even goes for the noobs. Although I expect your grandparents would have gotten bored by now and would rather play Wii Bowling, so it's up to you to finish all 3 books. As you can see, the game is really beautiful. The Wii U is actually impressive when it comes to graphics, and everything here just looks amazing. Even the backgrounds where nothing's happening really look nice. The music is highly enjoyable as well and adds to the game's overall experience. Being from Nintendo, you know it's pretty much a no-brainer that the violence level is going to be almost non-existent. It holds true with this game, and since my mind was trained more on solving puzzles, I really didn't notice the lack of Goomba deaths. This is one game that you should have in your Wii U collection as it stands out on its own.
And there you go, it's an example of some games that don't really focus much on violence, but are still good.
Yeah, and we need you guys to let us know what games you think are really fun, but low on violence as well.
That aren't sports games, not racing games, not bocce.
No baseball.
No World Championship darts on the Wii.
Yeah, no Tetris, we've already covered that.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know, and next time, we're going to be covering games that are excessively violent.
Oh, goody. Hey, Joe.
Oh, hey, Dave.
Here's your car keys.
Okay, thanks, man. Did you enjoy it?
Well, I did until I got in a wreck and I totaled your car.
What?
I was texting somebody on my phone and I ran in the back of a car, and I'm really sorry.
Dave, that's my only car.
I'm sorry. I just hope you have insurance.
Do you know what that car meant to me?
No, I don't.
Well, it meant a whole hell of a lot, and now I'm going to take it out of your ass.
Oh, no. Violence is not the answer. I'll do whatever you want, but just no violence.
Well, then you're going to play Beast Wrestler.
No! I can't play Beast Wrestler.
Oh, no. You are going to play Beast Wrestler.
I'd rather die. Please, Joe, take my gun. I can't come here, but you pull the trigger, okay? Pull the trigger. I don't want to play Beast Wrestler.
No, you're going to play Beast Wrestler.
No.
Go play Beast Wrestler.
Okay.
He's playing Beast Wrestler.